Astrophysics is definitely a very interesting subject, but more interesting are some of the fundamental and basic concepts. Some of these concepts seems to be matching with each other. However, there are very subtle differences between these concepts, and in this video we would quickly look across some of the basic concepts of astrophysics. These concepts will help you build better on the mathematics and the concepts of astrophysics as you read and study later. My name is Shaunak and you're watching this video on my channel Physics for Students. Welcome to some of the basic concepts of astrophysics. First, we will look into this. What is the distinction, or you can say what is the relationship between a planet and a dwarf planet? Well, the distinction between a planet and a dwarf planet is primarily based on certain specific criteria. The first one is that a planet orbits around the sun. Yes, a planet must orbit the sun directly. The second one is called it should have a sufficient mass for self-gravity. That means that it must have enough mass for its self-gravity to overcome rigid body forces so that it assumes a nearly round shape, or what we can say a hydrostatic equilibrium. The most important part is that it should clear the neighborhood. A planet must have cleared its neighboring region of other objects. This means it has become gravitationally dominant and there are no other bodies of comparable size other than its moons or those otherwise under its gravitational influence. This is, you can say, what are the features or maybe what are the areas which primarily makes the planet and its characteristics. We come to the next, what is called the dwarf planet. Yes, a dwarf planet also orbits the sun directly. If I talk of the sufficient mass, yes, it must have enough mass for its self-gravity to shape it into a nearly round form or a hydrostatic equilibrium. The distinction is this: it has not cleared the neighborhood. Unlike a planet, a dwarf planet has not cleared its neighboring region of other objects. It shares its orbital zone with other bodies of similar size that are not under its gravitational influence. And most importantly, a dwarf planet, it must not be a moon or a satellite of another body. So let us see some quick examples. So we know the planets like Earth, Jupiter, Mars, etc. And dwarf planets are Pluto, Eris, Haumea, Makemake and Ceres. We come to the next important concept. The relation or the difference, whatever you want to say, is a very interesting topic which is called a black hole and a neutron star. Now, if I talk of a black hole, primarily it relies upon the formation. So black holes form from the remnants of massive stars, typically more than 20 to 25 times the mass of the sun, that undergoes a supernova explosion. If the core's remaining mass after the explosion is above a certain threshold, that is 2 to 3 solar masses, it will collapse into a black hole. There are certain properties which makes the black hole very unique. The first is the event horizon. The defining feature of black hole is its event horizon, the boundary beyond which nothing, not even light, can escape due to the immense gravitational pull. Singularity: at the very center lies the singularity, a point of infinite density where the laws of physics break down. Most importantly, you will see that black holes do not have a physical surface. That means the black holes do not have a surface like normal objects. The event horizon is a point of no return rather than a physical surface. Also, the escape velocity within the event horizon exceeds that of the speed of light. We come to the neutron star, and in terms of formation also, you see neutron stars form the remnants of stars with initial masses about 8 to 20 times of the mass of the sun that explode as supernova. If the core remaining mass is between 1.4 and 3 solar masses, that is basically called the Tolman-Oppenheimer-Volkoff limit, it collapses into a neutron star. The escape velocity, yes, escape velocity is high, but remember it is not greater than the speed of light. It has got a very dense core. The neutron stars are incredibly dense with a mass to about 2 solar masses compressed into a sphere of about 20 kilometers in diameter. It has got a solid crust. Neutron stars have a solid crust and a superfluid core primarily composed of neutrons. And most importantly, they are supported against further collapse by what is called a neutron degeneracy pressure, which has got a quantum mechanical effect. Now, if I go forward, what are the key differences between black hole and neutron star? Here are the one. So, black holes have an event horizon and a singularity with no physical surface. Here you can see neutron stars have a solid crust and a dense core primarily composed of neutrons. Talking of the formation, black holes form from the collapse of core exceeds about 2 to 3 solar masses, and neutron stars form cores with masses between 1.4 and 3 solar masses. Escape velocity inside black hole's event horizon, the escape velocity exceeds the speed of light, while in neutron stars escape velocity is definitely significant but not greater than the speed of light. Talking of the detection, black holes are detected by their influence of nearby matter. Neutron stars are detected through emissions like pulsar signals and X-rays, as well as gravitational waves from mergers. Merger means the merger of two neutron stars, which heavily emits a kind of a gravitational wave. We next come to another very important topic where a lot of researches which are going on nowadays is dark matter and dark energy. So first we look into what is a dark matter. If I talk of the composition, it is unknown. Dark matter is a type of matter that does not emit, absorb or reflect light, making it invisible and detectable only through gravitational effects. Potential candidates. Possible candidates to dark matter include weakly interacting massive particles, WIMPs, axions and sterile neutrons. Gravitational effects. Dark matter exerts gravitational forces affecting the motion of galaxies and galaxy clusters. It helps hold galaxies together and influence the rotation of curves. If I talk of the structure formation, it played a crucial role in the formation of structures in the early universe, providing the gravitational scaffolding for galaxies to form and as they revolve. Coming to dark energy, it is also an unknown composition. Dark energy is a mysterious form of energy that is hypothesized, which permeates all of space and drives the accelerated expansion of the universe. So it is mostly responsible for the acceleration of the universe. It is a theoretical model. It could be related to the cosmological constant lambda, to Einstein's equation. It is a scalar field or other unknown mechanisms. Yes, it has played an important role in the universe in cosmic expansion because dark energy is responsible for the observed acceleration in the expansion rate of the universe. It counteracts the gravitational pull of matter. A dominant energy component, yes, dark energy constitutes about 68% of the total energy content of the universe. So here are the quick key differences. Dark matter is a form of matter that exerts gravitational forces but does not interact with electromagnetic forces, where dark energy is a form of energy driving the accelerated expansion of the universe. Dark matter clumps and affects the motion of galaxies and other formation of structures. Dark energy is uniformly distributed and causes the expansion of the universe to accelerate. Dark matter is detected primarily through gravitational effects on visible effect, while dark energy is inherent from observed acceleration in the expansion of the universe. And finally, most importantly, dark matter makes up to 27% of the universe, while dark energy accounts to about 68%. We next come to a very important thing which is called the Eddington limit and the Chandrasekhar limit, which is often used in astrophysics. First, we deal with Eddington limit. So what is the Eddington limit? If I talk of the definition, it is basically also called Eddington luminosity, or the maximum luminosity a star or any other luminous object can achieve, where the outward pressure from the radiation is balanced by the inward pull of gravity. The mechanism works as a star's luminosity increases, the radiation pressure exerted by photons becomes significant. At the Eddington limit, this radiation pressure counteracts the gravitational force by pulling the matter inward. When the radiation pressure equals the gravitational force, that means it is balancing the forces, the star is at the Eddington limit. If the luminosity exceeds the limit, the outer layers of the star can be pushed away, potentially causing a loss of mass. This is the formula of Eddington limit, where G is the gravitational constant, M is the mass of the star, C is the speed of light, and kappa is called, which is called the opacity. We come next to the Chandrasekhar limit. So this is something different. Chandrasekhar limit is basically the maximum mass that a stable white dwarf star can have before it collapses in its own gravity, forming into a neutron star or a black hole. If I go by the mechanism, electron degeneracy pressure, white dwarfs are supported against gravitational collapse by electron degeneracy pressure. It is a quantum mechanical effect arising from the Pauli exclusion principle, which I am not explaining here, which states that no two electrons can occupy the same quantum state. So the Pauli exclusion principle actually helps the white dwarfs to support against gravitational collapse. Yes, there is a mass limit. If the mass of a white dwarf star exceeds that of the Chandrasekhar limit, the electron degeneracy pressure cannot hold it any longer, and it goes for a gravitational collapse, forming into a neutron star or a black hole. So here are some of the key differences. Eddington limit pertains to the maximum luminosity and radiation pressure balance in stars or accreting bodies, where a Chandrasekhar limit is the maximum limit that a white dwarf can have while being supported by electron degeneracy pressure. Eddington limit involves the balance between radiation pressure and gravitational forces. Chandrasekhar limit involves the balance between electron degeneracy pressure and gravitational forces. So remember, both of these, Chandrasekhar limit and Eddington limit, both have got gravitational forces, but that one, Eddington, has got radiation, and this is the electron degeneracy pressure. The consequence is that exceeding Eddington limit leads to mass loss from star or accretion disk due to the radiation pressure, and here exceeding the Chandrasekhar limits leads to the collapse of a white dwarf into a neutron star or a black hole. Here is another important concept, which is called a redshift or a blueshift. First we look into redshift. The definition tells that it occurs when the wavelength of light, or say for example any other electromagnetic radiation from an object, is increased or shifted towards the red end of the spectrum. This means the light is stretched and it makes it appear redder. Yes, it undergoes a kind of a Doppler effect, because redshift can be caused by the motion of an object moving away from the observer. This is similar to the way the pitch of a sound slowly lowers as the sources move away. Cosmological left shift: due to the expansion of the universe, distant galaxies appear to move away and away from us, causing their light to redshift. The further away a galaxy moves, the more its light is redshifted, providing evidence that the expansion of the universe. Gravitational redshift: light escaping from a strong gravitational field, such as near a black hole, is redshifted due to the energy loss is overcoming due to the gravitational pull. We come next to what is called a blueshift. It is almost opposite to that, but the phenomena is that blueshift occurs when the wavelength or light or other electromagnetic radiation from an object is decreased. Remember, here it is decreased, and in redshift it is increased or shifted towards the blue end of the spectrum. This means that light is compressed, making it appears blue. Yes, it has also undergoes a Doppler effect, can be caused by the motion of light moving towards the observer. That was away, this is towards the observer. This is similar to the way the pitch of sound rises as the source approaches. Gravitational redshift: yes, light moving towards a stronger gravitational field, such as near a black hole, is blue shifted due to gaining energy as it falls into the gravitational well. Here are some of the key differences between the two. Redshift: the wavelength increases or shifted toward the red end of the spectrum, indicating that the source is moving away from the observer. In case of blueshift, wavelength decreases, indicating that the source is moving towards the observer. Often associated with the expansion of the universe, redshift indicating galaxies moving away from each other, and with gravitational fields in the context of light escaping massive objects. Blueshift typically associated with objects moving towards the observer, such as stars or galaxies on a collision course with our galaxy, or light moving into a gravitational field. More commonly observed in distant galaxies and used to measure the rate of expansion. So this is basically what redshift is all about, and blueshift is less common on a cosmological scale, but maybe can be observed some nearby objects such as Andromeda galaxy or the Milky Way. So these were some of the quick 5 concepts, differences, relationships when you start with astrophysics. I hope this video will become very useful to you. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you have liked the video, please do not forget to hit on the subscribe button and click on the bell icon to get all the notification from Physics for Students. You can contact me at this email ID, and you can also subscribe to my other channel exclusive for general theory of relativity, and you can follow me on my Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter account. That's all for today's video. A quick roundup on what are the basic concepts of astrophysics. Please do let me know how do you like the video by putting up a comment, and Physics for Students will keep on surprising you with more and more such interesting and knowledgeable videos. Thank you very much.